Hi gang, I'm Mac Newton. Welcome back. You know, I always love doing these videos for YouTube. I enjoy looking at the comments you guys make. I enjoy getting the emails, even though I'm not really good at answering them all the time. Now we've done so many. We're doing them usually in response to a question or an inquiry about how something should work, and this is exactly the case for this particular video. This is an interesting topic, one of my more controversial topics that I've ever done, I think, here on YouTube. I'm going to discuss the differences between initiative / creativity and competition. And if you've not heard me talk about that in the past, you might right now be wondering, where is the similarity? Which one is good and which one is bad? It certainly can't be competition. You're in for a big surprise. As far as I'm concerned, competition truly is the bad guy in this situation. And I think I'm going to show you why, and I'm going to show you a suitable alternative for yourself that'll allow you to exit the world of competition and become more proficient at what competition is supposed to do, which is garnering you a win. Okay? And there's a better way to do it that'll leave you with a calmer mindset, in other words, give you more self-control, far less stress dominated, a better lifestyle, a better way. But you'll be more actually competitive by not competing. Now let me tell you where this all sort of started with me. It started with an article that I read about Walt Disney. It may have been a short story where he was being interviewed. And I've always been interested in real creative people. People who have literally changed the world, change how everyone thinks and sees stuff. And certainly Walt Disney did that with his unbelievable creativity in regards to animation and cartoons and motion pictures using animation. Just an amazing person with an incredible philosophy of life. I'm just going to deal with this one. The thing that jumped out at me in reading his interview was when he responded to a question from the interviewer saying, Mr. Disney, doesn't it bother you when people just rip off all of your ideas about animation and go on to make movies themselves using your ideas? I mean, you know, standing on the back of your genius, riding the wave of your creativity, your hard work, skipping all of those steps and just imitating basically what you did and going on to make a profit. Doesn't it bother you? And he says, well, no, not at all. Because you hit it on the head. What they're doing is copying me. What they're doing is imitating me. What they're doing is nothing that's going to lead them to further steps. That nothing is going to lead them to be able to develop the field further. Because the only thing they're getting better at is imitating. In fact, the mere fact that they're doing that is actually dulling their mind, which is what creativity does, and I'll get more into that in a second. He says, I never compete, I create. I so love that phrase that I simply borrowed it for myself. I made it part of my self-concept. I made it part of how I did business. Because I've long done things a little bit differently when it comes to physical fitness, when it comes to training individuals, because of how I've had to approach myself as a martial artist and some of some of the physical challenges that I've had in my life were substantial. And some of the more traditional methods of rehabilitation or conditioning and training simply were not enough to get me where I wanted to go. So I had to create unconventional methods. I had to create unusual moves that brought about, well, unconventional results. I got stronger. I got more flexible. I got well. I healed. And I went on to accomplish the things, in fact, exceeded some of my expectations from the start. Well, as time went on, and I started working as a conditioning coach for the Oakland A's, and then later on the Dallas Cowboys and other professional organizations, I used these techniques that I had created for myself, things that were not done routinely. And I sort of brought them into the mainstream. I can remember days sitting at Phoenix Municipal Stadium here in Phoenix, Arizona, and looking into the stands and seeing representatives from 3/4 or even more of all the major league teams in baseball videotaping my workouts every day, because they'd never seen anything quite like it. It was that controversial, and there were stories written about it, and people saying, predicting I'm going to injure players and I'm going to cause problems, that people didn't work out this hard, especially on the days they played, and blah, 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 just on and on, because they'd never seen this so differently. And in response to the questions, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself, but contrary to everyone's expectations, everyone prospered. Players got stronger. Players got more flexible, avoided injuries, came back from injuries faster. It was just amazing to try to watch the response of all these people. Well, the response was to try and imitate it, to try to copy it and bring it to use with their teams. And so it was even in my own gym. As my gym grew and people came from far and wide to take advantage of this completely new and unorthodox method of physical training that people were just going crazy over, my gym grew, my business grew, and people took notice. Other physical training students took notice of that. And they wanted to do the same thing. And some of them came to me and said, well, could you do a class in our gym, or train to want to, do it for us? Well, at the time, things were growing so fast. Certainly I couldn't take time away from my gym to go and teach a class at someone else's gym. I couldn't do that. But so they started simply copying. I remember one gym actually sent someone in as a prospective student, well, I saw right away, and to take my class, take notes of it, and then go back to their gym and teach the class. And they were able to do it to a certain degree, and they would say, well, this is, in advertising it and trying to get people to go to their class, they would say, well, this is just like Mac's class. It's just like the one that you're going to at Mac Newton's gym, only it's cheaper. All right, it's like most knockoffs, you can save money. And so people would come to me and ask me the same question that they asked Walt Disney. They would say, doesn't it bother you when people are kind of ripping you off? Because you know what that is. It's people say, well, it's the sincerest form of flattery. And they would say, no, it's just the sincerest form of ripping somebody off. I said, well, I don't see it that way at all. I said, because I don't compete, I create. And that is exactly what I do. I compete. I create. I simply am always creating new ways to accomplish, better ways to get the job done. Ways that are simpler, that are easier, that are more compact. I don't have to change the entire thing sometimes in my creativity. Change one part of it to make it different. I sometimes will create new exercises right in the middle of class, give them a name, and use them. Once I started seeing myself as a completely creative person, my creativity almost went wild. It didn't bother me what other people did at all, because I knew exactly how it worked, how it functioned, and what the next logical step would be, or the next illogical step. Why? Because I had created it. if someone's going to imitate it, they don't know where it came from or where it's going. They're only good at imitating. All right, okay. I call competition a trap. And I'm going to try to teach you how to avoid the trap of competition. So if you've always believed that being a highly competitive person is a habit that is absolutely necessary for success, well, you're in for quite a surprise. I mean, in fact, you might be already seeing my point right now. I mean, all of our lives, and I can remember many times playing basketball in high school and baseball. I can remember so many times coaches telling us we've got to understand the spirit of competition, and we've got to get out there and compete. And being a lifelong martial artist, we went to dozens of competitions, tournaments, but I never taught my students to compete there. We had three things we wanted to do. We wanted to go there, have fun, make friends, and learn something. That's the only reason we went to these tournaments. Now, in terms of winning, which we did a lot of the time, why would that happen? Because we had another little threefold mantra that we lived by. It was to show up, be who you are, and do what you do. Now, if you're able to be who you are, and if who you are is good enough, you'll win. You don't have to compete with anyone. And once you understand the real philosophy of initiative and creativity, you're going to be more spontaneous in that tournament. You're going to be able to create and originate new strategies on the spot, instantaneously, not simply just respond to an orchestrated event where some coach is saying, I want to put you here and you there and you there, almost negating your ability. It's just like the coach that doesn't even trust his players. Unlike one of my other sources of inspiration, Coach John Wooden. Arguably one of the greatest coaches in college basketball of all time. Some people say not arguably, the greatest. And so John Wooden did all of his teaching in the practice gym. The only thing he would do during the game would simply change players to meet the circumstance on the floor. He let them create the game based upon what they'd been taught already. He used their talent and spontaneity and believed in them and allowed them to initiate the action, create new moves, things that he possibly had never even thought of that would instantly mold itself to what was needed on the floor, rather than trying to control everything himself like a monomaniac, so to speak, which some of these coaches become, and because they have their so-called systems. And that sometimes is a system that's designed to minimize the abilities of the players. So, and basically that was something else I borrowed from my martial arts training as well. I did all my teaching, and still do, on the floor. When we go to competitions, I sit at a place where I can observe all of the different areas where my students are going to be performing against other students. I have confidence in them that they've been taught how to deal with anything that could possibly come up. They've been taught to rely on themselves and become self-reliant, which is the exact opposite of competition, by the way, self-reliance and competition. And so those two people, Walt Disney and John Wooden. And I've got another story just a little bit later I'm going to tell you about Muhammad Ali. That is an amazing story, using and dramatizing the immediacy of and how immediate initiative / creativity versus competition can work. All right. As I said, all of our lives we've been told that we must compete in order to succeed. In other words, we've got to outrun, we've got to outsell, we've got to outmaneuver others. And if we do that, we're going to be praised. We're going to be praised for our victories and rewarded with all the trappings of success. We're going to get praised, and we receive scholarships, and for the professionals, more and more money. For whether it's Little League to corporate boardrooms. The war cry is exactly the same across the world. Beat the other guys. And rarely will a day pass in our lives, no matter what our age or status, when we don't find ourselves competing for something. Be it a newly created position in the firm or the last parking space in the company parking lot. Is there a better way to live than this tension-filled hell of constant competition? I believe there is. And I think that you'll believe so too. And the operational word here is initiative. Initiative and creativity. In fact, let me give you, I have here the dictionary's definition of those two words. All right, initiative first, a noun. An introductory act or step leading to action. In other words, to take the initiative in making friends. Readiness, ability, enterprise, or sometimes to lack initiative. Now, creativity. The ability to transcend traditional ideas. The ability to transcend traditional rules and patterns and relationships, and to create meaningful new ideas, forms, or methods. Okay? All right. Competition, on the other hand, our definition, is basically defined as a rivalry. A contest between rivals. A person competing to keep ahead of the effort of two or more parties acting independently to secure active demand by two or more for something in short supply. In other words, a rivalry. Now, when you listen to those definitions, which one seems the most organic to you? All right? Of course it does. Initiative and creativity. The ability to transcend traditional ideas. And where does the stress come in those three definitions? Well, it comes in the definition of competition, where we're defining it as a rivalry, a contest between rivals. A person competing to keep ahead of. Ahead of what? Ahead of anything. Ahead of the other person. Ahead of the other company. Ahead of your competition. Keep ahead. I never look at it that way. I don't try to keep ahead of anyone. They're trying to keep ahead of me. Because you know what? I don't compete. I create. And it's my creativity that keeps me in the lead. They can't create because they're so busy trying to compete with me, which means they can only copy. All right. I don't mean to make light of the subject, so don't be offended by that. I've discussed it so many times that as I do, I see the fallacy so clearly of the people who are caught up in the grip of competition, but I understand. I understand how and why that has happened to you. And because I know that this goes against everything that you have been taught, probably from the time you ever played your first Little League game or you played your first game of hopscotch, or you were told to compete. Get out there and compete. And sometimes you watch TV at the end of a basketball game or any other kind of a sporting event, and the coach is saying, well, you know what, I'm really proud of my guys. They got out there and they were competing. They are pretty proud of how they competed out there today. You know what? You're probably listening to the losing coach. The winning coach is going to be saying something like this. Well, you know what I'm most proud of is my guys went out there today and made the plays they had to at the right times. Those are totally different ways of looking at it. The winning coach is proud of the way his guys were able to spontaneously and creatively react with what was needed at the time it was needed. Whereas the losing coach, he can only be happy about the competitive effort that they existed. But because competition is always lagging behind creativity. Creativity is instantaneous. That is initiated. Whereas competition is always a response to that. So it's always going to be late. So you're looking at the difference right there between the two. Now, as I said, there is a better way. Because for every challenge you accept, for every problem you resolve, it calls for personal initiative. It calls for creativity. Because an initiative produces self-reliance. The feeling that you're in charge and you can do this. I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And at the same time, it produces that self-reliance because you're setting your own standards. You are responding and acting in accordance with your own values and principles. Whereas competing with others means that you allow them to set your goals. You allow them to set your values and even your rewards. Okay? So remember this. With competition, it will always place your life in the hands of others, while initiative gives you the freedom to choose your own destiny. You are in charge. Self-reliance. My personal opinion is that competition, as I said earlier, dulls the mind. I mean, you might even take it further and say that it sort of enslaves the mind, in a way where you don't have many options as to how you behave. Your options are limited. It's one of the most prevalent and certainly, in my opinion, one of the most destructive of all the many forms of psychological dependence. Eventually, if you don't overcome it, it produces a dull, imitative, insensitive, mediocre, burned out, stereotyped individual who is devoid of initiative, devoid of creativity, devoid of imagination, originality, and certainly spontaneity. All these things are lost. Essentially, competition produces zombies. Competition is a process or a variety of habitual behaviors that grows out of a habit of thinking. So you're doing things basically one way. You become extremely predictable. The people that your rivals in this competition will always be able to predict in certain situations what you're going to do. That's going to be your tendency. To a person who initiates creativity and is spontaneous, you never know what they're going to do. Even with the skill sets that you may know about from them, they're going to have the ability to use them in new and unusual ways. They're going to be able to ricochet when you think they're going in a straight line. They're going to be able to move about in different ways that you may have never ever thought. You never know what to expect from them. And this is where the story about where Muhammad Ali comes in. You never know what to expect. Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman in Zaire. Now, I should know the year off, but I don't think that's really important here. And in fact, he was such an underdog that so many reporters and spectators, including myself, thought Muhammad Ali could get hurt here. I mean, George Foreman was a monster. He was huge. He was a monster. Literally, when he had fought another heavyweight, Joe Frazier, he had literally lifted him off the floor with a punch. Boom! I mean, it was amazing. And in some of his training videos, he had punched the bag so hard that he had literally caused them to explode. And in one sequence, he had knocked the bag and broke the chain, knocking the bag out of the ceiling. And you thought, oh my goodness gracious, Muhammad Ali is going to get killed because this man is so strong. He's a brute. And Muhammad Ali was just going around meeting the people, and every time the reporters would ask him what's going on, he would simply respond, oh, don't worry, not to worry. I'm not going to be killed. Things are okay. Well, as fight night came around, we saw the reason why. We had never seen this strategy before. Almost immediately at the beginning of the fight, Muhammad Ali did not stand in the middle of the ring, as had been his cussed him so many times and shuffle his feet and flash punches and do. No, he didn't do that. He didn't stand in the middle of the ring and trade punches with this monster, George Foreman, who was so much stronger. I guess he realized he couldn't compete with him on that level. So what he did is he slowly retreated to the ropes. And he invited George Foreman to throw those huge haymakers of punches that he caught, most of them on his arms and elbows and forearms and gloves. And sometimes, as you know, they were saying, think outside of the box. Well, Muhammad Ali didn't just think outside of the box. He took himself physically, his physical self, outside of the ring. He would lean back, and literally was outside of the ring, and the punches couldn't even reach him. Something never been seen before, something certainly George Foreman did not expect. Muhammad Ali was not competing. He was creating, and he was initiating this fearlessly. The people in his corner were going crazy. They were screaming at him, "Get off the ropes! Get off the ropes! You're going to get killed!" And he didn't respond. He'd go back to his corner after each round was over, like he was just stoic. Couldn't even hear them. "Muhammad, get off of the ropes! Get off of the ropes! Get off of the ropes!" He would just sit there. And I'm thinking, where is this going? Well, we soon saw. As the rounds went by and George Foreman's arms got more and more fatigued, the punches became slower and slower and less powerful. And finally, you started seeing that every few punches, Muhammad Ali would spring off the ropes and pow, 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 hit him with 3 or 4 punches and go right back. And then finally, when it was very clear that George Foreman was no longer a match for Muhammad Ali, he came off of the ropes with a vengeance, throwing punch after punch after punch that were powerful and focused and accurate and fast. Well, it's history, so you know all about it. He knocked him out cold. He knocked him out cold. In one that will go down in history as one of the greatest fights of all time, using a strategy that wasn't based on competition, but based upon initiative and creativity. Now, not everyone has the ability to do that. Certainly you have to be more developed, more talented, and you have to have a real strong belief in self. I mean, it's easier in some ways to compete, because all you have to do is follow the lead of your coach. In other words, just go 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm supposed to be here at this point and here at that point. That's why it dulls your mind. Because you're not using your own, you're just simply following the lead of someone who's a head higher than you. Someone who's in charge, supposedly. Now, in other words, you become trapped in imitation. Monkey see, monkey do. Just keep doing it that way. The habit of competing is so widespread that many people firmly believe that it's the law of the land, it's the law of nature. This is the way it's supposed to be. Competition is frequently praised as a great virtue to develop by everyone. And this is very unfortunate and for some a costly misunderstanding. Since human skills develop fully and adequately only in an area of cooperation. That's where all of your human skills, mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, they all develop in an area of cooperation. In other words, a condition of reinforcement. Competition always lies juxtaposed with cooperation. And that frustrates human initiative. How are you going to initiate creative movement when you are told you got to be there, and there, and there, and there? You got to go out there and if we do this, well, we'll compete hard, compete real hard, be in those places. Well, you know what? Initiative is frustrated there. We can't break out of that routine and compete. Got to stay right there. This unfortunate misunderstanding arises from the fact that people seem to see sort of a superficial resemblance at times between initiative and competition. Many people sometimes will even claim that they are identical, like mistaking toadstools for mushrooms, which can be fatal. Unless we clearly see the difference between the two, you cannot hope to avoid the problems that are relevant in competition. It tries in every way to imitate initiative. But the sad reality remains that we compete with others only in those situations in which we are, number one, either afraid or we are devoid or defective in initiative and creativity. Those who can do, those who cannot or dare not, imitate. Those who can create, create. Initiative/creativity is the most prized of virtues, and you see it among only your most highly productive executives, athletes, teachers, scientists. I mean, quite frankly, it's a vital necessity for everyone, really, since all human problems demand activity. As I said, you might say that initiative is the opposite of competition, and one is the death of the other. Initiative is a natural quality of, I like to call it a free mind, not a mind that is captured and controlled by someone or something else. It is totally spontaneous and creative and intuitive in its responses to sorry about that. I didn't. Sorry about that. As I said, initiative/creativity is a quality of the free mind. It is totally spontaneous. And it's intuitive and creative in its responses to confronting situations as they arise. Totally spontaneous. In dealing with them once they show up. Spontaneous, instantaneously, that cannot be predicted. The free mind allows a person to be an inner-directed person whose responses in actions are automatic. Competition, on the other hand, is merely an imitative response that lags behind, as I said earlier. It lags behind while it waits either for direction or from another response from their rival. Initiative produces spontaneous action, whereas competition produces delayed reactions to something that has already happened. So, to the free mind, or I should say to free the mind from the habit of competition, we must first see in detail the process by which the mind is kind of captured by competition. The way out of a trap is to know the way in which the trap is built. And only then will it stop being a trap. The release from the trap of competition lies in the increase of self-reliance, the increase in self-confidence. Since competition can only arise out of a lack of self-reliance. It's that simple. Self-dependence accomplishes that which competition can never touch. Now, there are a couple other points I'm going to throw at you, but this is basically the gist of it. There are a couple of other things that we can see. Earlier today, as I was getting ready with my assistant to put this tape together for you guys, I was watching a CNN broadcast of a tragic story. It was a few years old now, about a reporter for the New York Times travel magazine. He'd been very successful. He'd written stories from all around the world, and it seems that he was known for them. He was highly paid, and it seems he was competing with himself. Because people like to say, but is it okay to compete with yourself? It's the same. So in other words, now your rival is you. And that's supposed to be better. Well, in this case, this gentleman, in competing with himself, he had to constantly get better, better, and better. So instead of being able to create or initiate action, or create an area in which he can explore and let the stories flow, because he had to compete, he simply lied and fabricated it. Never happened. And was immediately fired and humiliated. That's what I was alluding to earlier when I said that can be a very costly and an unfortunate misunderstanding between the two, initiative, creativity versus competition. So there is another thing that happens that I want to bring to your attention with competition. It's comparisons. It's evident that the habit of competition is based on, or at least linked to, another habit, and that's the habit of making comparisons. We either compare ourselves as above someone else or below them. We fear those that we imagine are above us because we regard them as better than us, or even authority figures who are in a position to block our progress. We fear those we fancy are below us, lest they somehow catch us. So life appears to us to be one big dangerous game of one-upmanship, in which we always stand poised against our rivals and our enemies, against whom we must somehow compete and triumph over them. Or at least we imagine it will be like that way. So as I called it earlier, this built-in hell of competition. So the built-in hell of the competitive person is that they stamp themselves in their own mind as second class, lacking initiative, lacking creativity, basically followers. It is exactly that feeling which relentlessly drives them to compete even higher and even harder. The self-reliant person feels no desire to compete, no desire to otherwise prove themselves, either to themselves or to others. In short, all competition is second class behavior. A back without a brain, incapable of finding its own way. It must lean on and depend upon someone else telling what to do. And mentioning comparison, one more point about comparison, by the way. Comparison always breeds fear. And fear breeds competition and one-upmanship. We believe our safety depends on killing off the one above us or by outrunning them at their own game. We have no time to enjoy any game of our own, lest we lose ground in our race against others for status and position. And we may not rest, or those below us are going to, in the middle of the night, steal ahead of us. So basically, that's how I see it. Initiative / creativity versus competition. I don't compete. I create. Walt Disney doesn't compete. He creates. John Wooden didn't compete. He created. I'm not sure if he won the most championships of all college coaches, but I think that he probably won the most in a row. I think he won 7 or more in a row consecutively. Wow. And I just see a little note I wrote down here, and I sort of debated whether I wanted to mention it, but I will. The competitive person is always a poor sport. They can't stand any situation, at least not for very long, in which they're not ahead of others. If they feel they cannot win, They'll try to ruin the game for others. In other words, take their ball and go home. Or what he'll do, he'll lose courage and he'll lose interest in the game. He'll walk off the course. We saw that just recently by a major player in professional golf. As I said, initiative/creativity is exactly the opposite of competition. I think what you'll find when you apply some of this to your business, to your relationships, to your sport, to your activity, you're going to find yourself to be far less stressful and far happier as you take part in it. I'm Mac Newton. We'll see you again right here again on YouTube real soon. In the meantime, don't compete, create. Peace, I'm out.